When most people go to a store to buy bread, they think of buying products with standard ingredients like yeast, flour, water, and other additives. What if I tell you that according to recent reports, there's another surprising ingredient found in various store-bought breads in the US, and it's human hair? So if you are eating bread daily, there's a decent chance you're also consuming a bit of human hair. You heard that correctly, human hair imported from China. And just to be clear, the FDA is okay with it. When a consumer buys products they think are healthy for their family, it comes as quite a surprise when they discover their purchases contain additives from sources they may not want. It would not be surprising that their anger would be truly justified. But before jumping into the whys and how they add hair to your bread, let's see the process behind making one. Bread has been a relied-upon food for ages, and the way we make bread has adapted and changed over time. Most of the time, it's made with flour, water, yeast, salt, and sometimes a bit of sugar, as well as other sweeteners. Firstly, the dry ingredients, including flour, sugar, and other ingredients, are mixed well, and then water is added alongside yeast. Yeast is basically a tiny fungus that will expand with the sugars in your dough, and in return, it expels carbon dioxide gas. This gas makes the dough rise and gives bread that nice, airy texture. It is then kneaded to develop gluten in the bread, giving it its structure and chewiness. Now, on to the burning question, why does human hair end up in your bread? Well, besides the basics, a lot of breads will have extra additives to make them taste better, feel nicer, and last longer. These can be things like preservatives, emulsifiers, and dough conditioners, like l-cysteine being one of them. L-cysteine is an amino acid used to soften up the dough, fasten the baking process, and extend the shelf life of foods. Now, you may be wondering, what would be wrong with that? First, let me explain where and how they make this ingredient. Here's a few l-cysteine's sources are. Please note this will be getting graphic from this point on. L-cysteine is most often made from human hair and can also come from duck feathers, cow horns, and pig bristles. You might wonder where they get this gag-inducing ingredient. It's China. They collect hair clippings from barbershops and salons and send them over to the US to make l-cysteine. It's hard to imagine how they were able to come up with that, but it exists, and it's in most breads produced in the US. The process behind making l-cysteine is disturbing as well. Human hair is mixed with acid to convert it into some powder, which is then purchased by our commercial bread producers. All of this might sound strange to you. However, it's not as rare as you think. Actually, a lot of food products produced in the US have ingredients that would surprise most people. So when you're cleaning up the crumbs from your store-bought toast tomorrow, remember that bread might have been someone's ponytail before it got to your plate. Let that sink in for a moment. It's important to note that not all breads contain l-cysteine, and those that do may use the synthesized or animal-derived version of it. But that does not make it better, and consumption of this additive is highly in question. If you want to avoid consuming any product that contains this ingredient, it's worth checking the ingredients list on the back of the packaging for any signs of l-cysteine. Now that you know your hair can end up in the bread, it's natural to have a million questions about it. Is it even safe to consume? What side effects does it pose? Is it safe to eat? Most people are surprised to find out that the FDA regards l-cysteine as safe for consumption. This amino acid is commonly used as a dough conditioner in bread making, as it helps to improve the texture and shelf life of bread. Also, it can be made from many other sources, including duck feathers and hog hairs. Even though there have been some worries about using human hair for l-cysteine because of the risk of contamination. The FDA thinks the risk for that is too low, plus there is no conclusive evidence that suggests it poses health risks to consumers. This amino acid is even found in many natural foods, such as eggs, dairy products, and meat. Now here's where it gets interesting. If you have allergies to any of the products mentioned just now, you might also be allergic to bread. Allergic symptoms include hiving, itching, and heavy breathing. If you feel any of these symptoms after eating bread or any l-cysteine containing product, it is better to seek immediate medical attention. There are ethical concerns about using hair in bread. Even though the FDA considers using human hair to make l-cysteine generally safe and legal, a lot of people on social media have started to raise ethical concerns, with many famous influencers taking the lead. They feel that using human hair in food production is a disgrace and degrading to human dignity. In regards to animals, most people find it less of a concern. The use of various animal byproducts in food production have been going on for centuries. Let's look at how many food additives, like gelatin, come from animal bones and connective tissue. Sometimes, using these animal byproducts can be more sustainable and eco-friendlier than synthetic options. So is using human hair as a source of l-cysteine controversial? Some people say it's better to use it because it's cheaper and easily accessible. On the other hand, most people realize that if we have other alternatives to make l-cysteine, this should be our last resort, and hence, the European Union has banned it. That's correct. The use of human hair as a source material for l-cysteine is explicitly prohibited in the European Union. If the idea of human hair is upsetting to you, the best way to avoid it in your bread is to stick with bakeries, since they don't use l-cysteine in flour. You might want to steer clear of fast food spots like Dunkin' Donuts and Burger King, though, as they've been known to use it. McDonald's says they use a totally synthetic version that's not made from hair or animals, so no worries about hair in your burgers there, just more chemicals. People can have their own opinions on anything. If it makes you feel uncomfortable and you feel you shouldn't be using any part of a human in any type of food, regardless of whether it can regrow or not, then do your homework before you buy your next processed bread or bread-like foods. You would not be the only one that has already expressed their displeasure, especially since so many other alternatives exist. Now that we discussed hair, let's move on to another additive they put in your bread. Most people are unaware of how dangerous it can be for you to consume, and that additive is potassium bromate. You can find this in your bread, bagels, waffle cones, pizza crusts, and dough, and the list goes on. But what exactly is potassium bromate? Well, for starters, it is a chemical added to your food to help strengthen the dough and improve the texture of baked goods. And if that's not enough, it is also associated with many health risks. Due to safety concerns, potassium bromate is banned in many countries, including members of the EU, as well as Brazil, Canada, and even China as well. Studies have found that potassium bromate can cause cancer in lab animals, and the IARC thinks it might be a cancer risk for people as well. There's no solid proof that it causes cancer in humans yet, but more research is needed to figure out the long-term health risks. Not only that, but bakers who handle too much potassium bromate might end up with symptoms like diarrhea, vomiting, and pain or irritation in their stomach and digestive system. Lab studies show that potassium bromate turns into oxides and free radicals in the body, which can harm DNA and chromosomes. The level of damage depends on how much potassium bromate you ingest. Strangely enough, the FDA still allows it in the US. So, after everything you've heard today, would you still consume it knowing it will damage you internally? I hope the answer is no. And if that's the case, it is important to remember that your purchase keeps a company open for business or forces them to change to earn your consumership back. Although people are posting about it on social media, it's a good idea to steer clear of stuff if you're not sure what's in it. Go to your local bakery and buy your bread from there, or make one at home. You can find a plethora of resources and recipes on YouTube. And as a mindful consumer, please consider reading labels at the grocery store. If you read an ingredient that you can't pronounce or doesn't sound like it's grown in nature, run a fast check on your phone before purchasing it. If you know of an additive like l-cysteine and potassium bromate, tell us in the comments and help out our community. And don't forget to check out our other videos for more health tips and tricks.